Oh, hi. That's right. I owe you a story today, don't I? I was just making some notes on my next script here, but I've promised you, if you're following my schedule for the week, this is day 7, and I am to tell a funny story from childhood. Don't worry, it's a bottomless pit. I will never run out. And I did some thinking, and I've decided on a story from a time when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, probably 9. Um, and what was happening in our family is we had just moved from living way out in the country to more of a suburbs. And we had, sidewalks, and we roller skated and skateboarded and that kind of a thing. And we had a dog, Bullet, a German Shepherd, super smart, just amazing pet. And he had gone from being a country dog, having freedom, running wild, chasing rabbits, that kind of thing, to living in the suburbs. So he was cooped up in the back in a run. Um, and just to give you a little bit of backstory, around this time in my life, I was obsessed a little bit with horses. Okay. They were my favorite thing. It is all I read about. It's all I talked about, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on. But with this poor dog, I had almost trained him to be a horse. Not that I could ride him, but I had taught him to do a few things, like I could tie ropes onto his collar, one on each side, and go, yeah, and he'd take off running as if I was like driving, a covered wagon or something. I don't know what was in my mind. But I got to thinking about this when we moved to the suburbs, and we did have a little wagon, a little red wagon. Most kids did at that point, little metal wagon. And I thought, why can't I tie Bullet up to this wagon and have him pull us? So I got my little brother involved, and we got Bullet tied up to this wagon somehow and got in the wagon, got him on the sidewalk, and said, "Yeah." And Bullet took off running. And we got going really fast. We're both holding on to the edges of the wagon, and every time we hit a line in the sidewalk, it's like gagunk, gagunk, gagunk. And we're hanging on, having a ball. We are flying down the sidewalk. And then something happens that we couldn't have anticipated. And that is, well, if you know anything about male dogs, then you know how they pee. They stop and lift a leg, right? So we get to a particular house, and he sees a nice bush and decides to stop and take care of business. So he raises his leg, and can you just take a wild guess on what's going on with the kids in the wagon now? Well, we're still going full speed. He may be stopped, but we are trucking down the sidewalk. And so we're flying by him, and then we hit the end of the rope. It yanks against our wagon, flips us out of the wagon upside down, kids sprawled out on a stranger's yard. Now, it just so happens that this particular neighbor that we didn't know, this man, witnessed this whole thing and was not thrilled, because he was very fastidious about his garden and his yard. And he had those little white rocks that people used to decorate with. And they were everywhere. We hit with a bang, and rocks went flying, and we're sprawled out on his yard, and he comes out yelling. He's like, "What are you doing? You're messing up my yard." And, who knows what Bullet's doing at this point? He's oblivious. He's just having a good time being out there. And so we got ourselves together and took off as fast as possible. We kind of, avoided this man, because in our minds, this is the mean guy. Of course, from his perspective, it may not be what you would want to see take place in your yard. So that was one of many stories that I have piled up to tell you. I will add on a little extra to this story, and that is that a couple of years later, I discovered that house where that man lived is the same house in which my math teacher lived. So this was my math teacher's husband and her house, and we didn't know that until way later. And honestly, even in junior high, a couple years after, I ended up babysitting for them. They had a little girl. And so everything kind of comes full circle. He might not have been quite as mean as we thought, but that was an adventure. We had lots of fun back then. And honestly, it's a little bit surprising that we survived to adulthood, but we did. And so that's one in a series. I'm trying to stick with my series by the day. And Saturday, even though you're not getting this until late, because it's a lot's gone into this. Let's just say I'm going to get this up by midnight if it kills me. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the story. More YouTube videos are going to be coming. And I'm going to schedule some. Some are going to be just off the cuff, and I will introduce myself a little better in another video. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it.